Hi students, welcome to Shekhar's History classes. We are doing this video as part of Prelims and Mains 2022 series. In this video, our point of discussion is about the rise of Rajputs and the causes for their defeat in the hands of Turks. First, we start with the rise of Rajputs, then we see examples of different Rajputs dynasties, and later we see the causes for their defeat in the hands of Turks. Broadly, we can see the factors for the rise of different Rajput states were the lineage-based polity, agrarian economy, distribution of land to the administrators, and the interclan marriages. Now we will see one by one here. These are the different dynasties that existed in 7th and 8th century onwards. Some of the important dynasties that existed during that time period were Chauhans of Ajmer, Gurjara Pratiharas, Gahadwalas, Guhilas, Chendelas, Kalachuris, Paramaras, Solankis. Different dynasties emerged. At least 36 Rajput dynasties were there after 7th century. We are talking about the time period after Harshavardhana. So it was the age of feudalism also. It was the age of feudalism. Feudalism emerged in the Indian subcontinent due to land grants given by the kings to the administrators. For example, we should go back to the times of Satavahanas. Satavahanas were the first dynasty which gave land grants to Brahmanas. Brahmanas for the purpose of charity and also for maintaining the religious activities, and they were given tax-free lands to them. Later, Guptas also this practice increased. After the Guptas, this practice became very common. Because of this, the distribution of land among the administrators became very common practice, and it gradually led to decentralization of polity. And this decentralized polity, then each and the centralized administration got weakened. The individual small principalities became very powerful. Now these small principalities started taking lineage from Suryavamshi, Chandravamshi, solar dynasty or lunar dynasty. So that is lineage based polity. Centralized administration was not strong enough, but one centralized administration supported by different distributed power based centers. And also this is the time period we are talking about after Guptas and after Harshavardhana. During this time period, the trade in the Indian subcontinent also reduced. Mainly agriculture became the main practice. Even during Gupta time period itself, we have an example that the people or the traders or the weavers in the coastal area migrated towards hinterland and they took practice of agriculture. So agriculture became very main practice. This agrarian economy lead to feudalism. Feudalism means centralized authority now supported by different small principalities. During the times of Mauryas, if we take, it was a centralized administration. The decisions taken at the center are implemented at the local level. Now during this time period, individual feudal lords were taking the decisions and they almost acted as independent from the center. Now only the main relationship between the central power and the feudal power was to grant or to supply arms, to supply army, men and material in case of war. So this is the major relationship between the central authority and the feudal authorities. One of the main reasons was the enhancement in the agrarian economy. The trade got declined. Now monetary economy declined. Due to this, central government could not give the salaries to the administrators in terms of coins. So what they have done, they have given the lands as part of their salaries. Gradually the lands increased under single administrator, and this administrator almost acted as a lord in his own territory. Likewise, so many number of territories emerged. This led to feudalism in Indian subcontinent. And within these, each and every feudal lord became powerful, and intermarriages among these feudal lords led to a different type of clans. This is also the time period of emergence of different jati, different varna, along with the Chaturvarna Shrama or the Chaturvarna division of Brahmanical lineage. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra was one of the categories of Brahmanical texts. Now, in addition to that, so many jatis, varnas, intercaste, so much intermixing took place during this time period. Under these circumstances, because of these small lords, now they started taking lineage to Suryavamsi, Chandravamsi. Some of these feudatories became so powerful that now they almost acted as a central power. Now they cut off their authority from the central administration. Now they became independent kingdoms. This is how the Rajputs, different Rajputs emerged out of these circumstances. Now independent Rajput kingdoms emerged out of these circumstances. At least 36 Rajput dynasties were there according to different historical analysis. Some important were Chauhans, Gurjara Pratiharas, Gahadwalas and Chandelas. Different Rajput dynasties spread in different parts of the country. Now, there are different type of theories on how these Rajputs emerged. Some historians theorized that these were foreign based people. According to this theory, Kushans and Shakas and Hunas, when they invaded India and when they settled in the Indian subcontinent, now they patronized Brahmins and Buddhists, and gradually they became part of Indian society. They part of Indian society as these people were warriors. When they patronized Brahmanas, the Brahmanas gave them the Kshatriya status in the Indian Varna system. That is how the foreign based warriors became part of Rajput Kshatriya clan. This is one theory. However, all historians are not accepting this theory. Some historians said the theory of descent from Kshatriyas. Suryavamsi and Chandravamsi dynasties in the ancient times, and these people took lineage from them, and still they existed in 8th and 9th centuries. Some theory of the descent of indigenous tribes. For example, in central India, some tribes like Gond tribe, they were warriors in their own way, and when the feudalism enhanced, these tribal lands were given to part of salary to the administrators. Now these administrators brought Brahmanas into their lands. Now Brahmanical traditions gradually entered into this region, and they gave the warrior kind of tribal people the lineage of Suryavamshi and Chandravamshi, so that they became part of Kshatriya Varna. That is how one theory suggested. One hypothesized that Agni Kund theory. This is based on mythology. Chand Baradai, a court poet of Prithviraj Chauhan, according to his writings, Rajputs were born out of a Agni Kund when Brahmanas kindled a sacred fire at Mount Abu. This is completely based on mythology. When the bad things increased in the Indian society, Brahmanas performed a sacrifice. Out of this sacrificial pit, Rajputs emerged to establish Varnashrama Dharma. So many historians outrightly reject this theory. However, this theory is also important for historians to say that this kind of theories were also woven when it comes to the rise of Rajput states. Next theory of mixed origin. Most of the historians believe this. It is saying Kshatriya and Brahmana origin. Brahmanas and Kshatriyas already the Indian existing society. Gradually they became part of when they became the feudal lords, they gradually carved out the independent states and they became part of Rajput clan. So by summarizing all of them, so these are the factors behind the rise of Rajput states: lineage based polity, agrarian economy, distribution of land, interclan marriages. This entire combination led to the rise of Rajput states. Now we see when it comes to the Rajput states, these people were very brave. If we take the characteristics of the Rajput states, let us take Gurjara Pratiharas. They were very powerful. When Rashtrakutas, Gurjara Pratiharas and Palas were there, they were very powerful. The Arab forces could not enter into mainland. These people, the characteristics were they were very brave. The chivalry of Rajputs is an exemplary one, and they fight wars like a sport. That means they were very brave and they do not go away from the wars and battles. They try to defend their territory at any cost. They give more importance to the honor than their life. So they protect their honor at any cost. So they were very brave and they tried to protect their kingdoms with so much bravery and chivalry. However, this became one of the weakness when it comes to the Turkish invaders, because the Gurjara Pratihara, as long as the Gurjara Pratiharas were very powerful, they tried to control a lot of territory. But once they became weak, different dynasties emerged and different territories carved out by these small feudatories. Now these feudatories became the Rajput important kingdoms. Now they are very strong in their own dominion. But when it comes to giving a unified force against the Ghaznavids, they could not be united. So the lack of unity was the main problem when it comes to the Rajput states. Independently, individually, they are very powerful. And even if we take the examples of the development during their time period, for example, Chandelas, they have patronized temple architecture. World famous UNESCO heritage sites like Khajuraho temples were built during Chandela time period. This was the age of continuous developments in terms of art and culture. If we take Eastern Gangas, Konark temple was built during this time period. Before the emergence of Delhi Sultanate itself, these developments were taking place here. When it comes to Rashtrakutas, they built Ellora Kailashnath temple. It also a UNESCO World Heritage site. And Gurjara Pratiharas and Solankis, they patronized art and architecture. So within their dominion, they were very powerful. However, when it comes to, they were always fighting with their neighboring Rajput kingdoms, but they lacked the common policy when it comes to northwestern part of India. This is one of the reasons for their defeats. Now we'll see the reasons, even though they are very brave, very strong in their arm and warfare, but why they were defeated by Ghaznavids and why they were defeated by Ghurid Muhammad. Now we will see the reasons. First one is the lack of strategy. They lacked the strategic vision for Rajputs. The Kabul and Lahore region had fallen to Turks when it comes to Ghaznavids. For example, we see here Ghaznavid Sultanate. Ghazni raided 17 times, and he included Multan, Lahore regions into his dominion. After the death of Ghazni Muhammad, these people still hold their strength in these areas. Rajputs did not give a strong united force to expel these people out of the Lahore and Multan regions, because Lahore and Multan regions are very powerful. Once if you capture these areas beyond Sindh region, if it is there in the hands of India, then these areas can be protected strategically and the invasions can be stopped at the frontier itself. But Ghaznavids already reached the plains of Indus. That means the next stage is just entering into the Gangetic Valley. So after the Ghazni Muhammad death, the successors were weak. Still, the Rajputs did not give a unified strength or unified force to expel these Ghaznavid forces. After Ghazni Muhammad raids also, these people used to come often raid in the neighboring territories. Even during this time period also, individual Rajputs used to fight them. Not a common unified battle was not given against these people. So this is one of the reasons, because they have seen like for Chamanas, Solankis were enemies and this side Gahadwalas were enemies. So now Ghaznavids were equal to these neighbors. They became one of the neighbors of these Rajputs, but they could not understand that if they compromise the security of northwestern part, it is going to affect everyone. They did not have that kind of strategic vision at that point of time. When it comes to Turks, they were persisting in their efforts to enter into India. Individually, sometimes there were skirmishes. The border armies were fighting against the Turks. Sometimes they were defeated, sometimes Turks used to raid the lands. They were very persistent in the effort to enter into Gangetic Valley. Next, energy wise, they were concentrating more on internal expansions. For example, here if you take Chamans, they were more concerned towards expanding their territories into Tomars and Gahadwalas and to Gujarat. They were not concerned about the northwestern part of India. So that is one of the reasons why they put more efforts in defeating Indian army or Indian neighbor than defeating Ghaznavid armies. This is one aspect. Next one, military wise. Military wise, Turks have given importance to mobility. They used horses. They got the horses of Central Asia. Central Asia very important for supplying quality horses. Central Asia provides quality horses. However, it is not to suggest that the Rajputs were not having quality horses. They used to import from this land. Still they have given importance to elephants. Elephants they led to heavy army. Moreover, not only when they go for war, when Rajputs go for war, along with soldiers, they used to bring or they used to take the normal common people also to wash clothes for the day-to-day activities of people. This means it is like a town, moving town. It is not an army. It is like a moving town from one place to the other place. Because of this, they were heavy in nature. These people were mobility is very high when it comes to Turks. If they feel whenever there is opportunity to handle the Rajput armies, they used to go and attack. If there is no such facility, then they come back and they will go the next day. When it comes to Rajputs, it is very heavy army. They cannot change the strategies often. When it comes to Turks, they can change the strategy of warfare at any moment because they have given the importance to mobility rather than large number of people. Now, administration wise, feudalism hereditary in nature. Here, Ikta system was followed by Turkish people. This means for administration, for salaries, they gave a land like the case of Rajputs. However, this was not hereditary. In case of Rajputs, one hereditary leader can give the lands to the next generation. When it comes to Ikta system, the centralized administration take away the land whenever Sultan or the king wants. If the performance of the Iqtadar was not good, then he take lands back and he can assign the land to some other Iqtadar. So this has increased the efficiency. Here, due to the hereditary nature, it increased the laxity in the administrators. This is another reason. When it comes to the need of the time, These feudal lords could not supply quality material and quality men, whereas Ikta system promoted quality men and material, so they could use it in the warfare. When it comes to personality character wise also, Rajputs felt retreating in the battle to be a dishonor. So they were ready to die, they were ready to do battle till they die. When it comes to Turks, they leave the battlefield if not in their favor, and they will come back again with a new strategy. For example, Muhammad Gori, he was defeated in with Solanki. He was defeated by Solankis by Bhima II near Mount Abu. Now he shifted the strategy. Let us take here. For example, when Ghurid forces they tried to capture Gujarat, Gori Muhammad, he was defeated near Mount Abu. Now he changed the strategy. Now he entered India from this point. There also in 1191, in the first battle of Tarain, he was defeated. However, he went back. Now once again the next year 1192, he changed the strategy and he come back with a new strategy. Finally 1192, he defeated, Muhammad Gori forces defeated Prithviraj Chauhan III. So this shows that Turks were learning from their defeats, whereas Rajputs used to feel that if they fail in the battle, they used to feel it is a disgrace and they were ready to even commit suicide. For example, when it comes to the conflict between Ghazni and Shahi rulers, Jaipala was a ruler. When he was fighting against Ghazni, Jaipala was defeated. Out of this disgrace, he committed suicide. So this kind of attitude also became weakness when it comes to Rajputs. So Turks were having given importance to mobility, the strategy, and their efficient administrative system. All these factors created opportunities for Turks to enter into Indian Gangetic plains. So now you see that these areas were hilly areas. The resources are very few. Now when they enter into Indian subcontinent, they got a lot of resources at their disposal. After this, Delhi Sultanate was established. Now with the resources of Gangetic plain, now they started defeating one by one. They completely annihilated the existing Rajput principalities, so that were existing even during Delhi Sultanate time period. So this is how you have to see. First we started with the rise of Rajput states, important Rajput states, and different theories given by different historians. But broadly, these are the factors for the rise of Rajput states, and later we have seen what was the causes for their defeat in the hands of Turkish people. Even though they are very strong in when it comes to warfare, why they were defeated. These are the various factors. Because of these factors, they were defeated by Turks. Turks established successfully Delhi Sultanate. So this is important chapter. In mains, question can be asked, despite the bravery of Rajputs, why they were defeated in the hands of Turkish people or Turkish armies. This can be the question when it comes to this chapter. So you please follow the rise of Rajput states, what are the various factors, and what are the examples of Rajput states, and finally the causes for the defeats in the hands of Turks. Thank you.